Well, good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Thank you for joining me today for folks' favorite Fandom Friday. Now, every Friday for 11 weeks now, I've gotten to visit with somebody from the wider world of the Tolkien fandom. Writers and musicians, artists and craftsmen, scholars, content creators, and more. And today, we welcome somebody whose work you almost certainly know. She is an award-winning screenwriter, independent author, and filmmaker. She's written dozens of articles for theonering.net, and along with her sister, created more than 100 episodes of Happy Hobbit on YouTube. She also worked with Daniel Falconer from Weta Workshop to create a book so large that it has its own gravity well, Middle-earth from script to screen. Folks, please welcome my wonderful and multi-talented guest, Kellie Rice.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, it is really a pleasure to have you, Kellie. It's good to see you again. First, I want to ask a question that, despite me knowing you for a little while, I've never gotten around to asking you, but probably because you've not been on the PPP or today's Tolkien Times. And that question is this: how and when did you first encounter Middle-earth? And what is it about Tolkien's works that keeps you coming back?
I actually was first exposed to the works of Tolkien through the animated film of The Hobbit. And unfortunately, it really scared me, the animation style.
Yeah, you're talking about the 1977, the Rankin and Bass one, right?
I thought his name was Bilbo Baggins because he had these big bags under his eyes, and it was just really. I know Gollum from that disturbs a lot of people as well.
Oh yeah, that was my nightmare. The stoned frog that lived under the mountain. Yeah.
So I was aware of it, and then it wasn't until the first film came out in 2001 that I went to go see it. And unfortunately, I wasn't feeling the magic right away that first time.
Really?
Yeah, I just felt like there was so much that I was missing as someone who had not read the book.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then about a year later, there was a big to-do about it being on HBO or one of those cable networks. And my sister was old enough at the time, because we've got quite an age gap, that I was like, hey, let's check out this movie. I've seen it before, and something was telling me I needed to see it again. So we watched it again on this winter night where it was this big storm and there was thunder and lightning and the power was flickering, and it totally added to the atmosphere of especially when the Nazgul are hunting down the Hobbit.
I was going to say that segment as they're making their way to Bree with the that must have been great. Yeah.
And after that, we were hooked. It was like a light bulb went off, and I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm just curious then, when did you finally get around to reading the books? Because if your first clue was, hey, I haven't read the books before, so I'm not feeling it, when did you decide I'm going to read the books?
Pretty quickly after that. After I saw the first film and really connected, I was like, okay, I need more. There's 3 books, 3 movies. I didn't want to spoil the movies. So I didn't read the whole trilogy until after.
Way of putting it, yeah.
Which I know is probably sacrilegious in some groups.
No, but we're lore masters, not gatekeepers here. We're not worried about how you.
Oh, good. That's a great motto.
That's kind of learned that the hard way over the years, but definitely that's my intention. I mean, we want to welcome everybody in. So. Well,
and what I found was I kept returning to the beginning, to Concerning Hobbits, that chapter when I would be struggling and not feeling well, not understanding my place in the world. I would just go back to the beauty and joy that Tolkien celebrates of a simple life. And
is something else, isn't it?
That is the thing that keeps me coming back, and that's why we do our Happy Hobbit show, is to explore and celebrate the joys of a simple life.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, the first thing I do want to ask you about properly is your work on this massive book. And for those of you listening to it on the podcast, I'm holding up something roughly the size of a small car. It is Middle-earth from script to screen, a massive, all-encompassing story about the project of bringing Tolkien's Middle-earth to life in Jackson's film trilogies. Makes for an engrossing experience, even for people, let's say those of us who find less than half of those films to be less than stellar. The book itself is still highly recommended. Kellie, tell us the story of your involvement in bringing this book to life.
Working on that book was a total dream come true, because I got to go to Wellington, New Zealand. I got to work literally side by side with Daniel Falconer, who was at the time a friend of mine, and also someone whose work I, of course, greatly, greatly value and admire. And there were so many days that I was like, I'm writing the history of the Line of Durin, and I'm getting paid. And I'm like, I'm in New Zealand.
Dream job. Yeah.
So yes, it really was a geek girl's dream come true, and I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud of Daniel, and I'm so proud of that book for everyone lucky enough to get a copy because they only did one print run.
Did they? I didn't even know that. Well, I'm just going to have to hold on to this then. It's going to have to be,
Yeah,
this
you
is my
should.
precious. It's going to sit there on my shelf and I'm going to enjoy reading it. They only did one print run.
Have it be
Excellent.
your precious.
It's going to have to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't
I
throw it
mean,
into the
it's 7
fire. It's too
pounds.
heavy. Yeah.
I think its weight and volume worked against it a little bit, and I
It
think
might
that
have.
might be why they didn't print so many, but,
Shipping that from
we're
New
hoping
Zealand
they'll
was
do
something
another
else.
print run.
That would be
Yeah.
nice. I'd love that.
Yes.
So earlier last week, August 1st, actually, you released the conclusion of your 4-book Afterworld series, Anam Cara. Can you tell my audience about this series and why they might be interested? Aha!
Yeah,
For those of you listening on the podcast, she's actually holding up a copy of the book, something I can't do yet until September. A beautiful dark cover with a black raven. There's a sword on it. I mean, it's got all the little kind of fantasy tells right there on the cover.
yeah, and this book, unfortunately for Tolkien fans, the 4th book is probably the one that would be the most interest for you because it does have more of those dark age, early medieval elements that we all
Okay.
know and love from high fantasy. But
Right.
the series on the whole is historical fantasy, and
Okay.
it tells the tale of a woman named Ophelia who must travel through her past lives to not only save her future, but to save the fate of the man she loves and has loved through multiple
Okay.
lifetimes.
Oh, through
So
multiple lifetimes. All right.
yes, so it's about a love that does not end at the grave, and some of my readers have
Little
compared it.
Aragorn Arwen there, maybe.
Yes, that's a good comparison. And some of my readers because it draws heavily from Irish history and folklore. Some of my
Oh, okay.
readers have compared it like to Outlander by Dana
Oh, I
Gabaldon.
see. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, it's not a bad comparison to be made then, right? I mean, if it
no,
compares well to that, that speaks highly.
yeah. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's very bittersweet for me to be releasing the final novel.
I bet.
Um, but it's time for this book child to go forth into the world, and we'll see
How
how.
long have you been working on all 4? Like, when did you start working on the first one?
Gosh, back in I actually wrote them between 2013 and 2015.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
and have just because I tend to write in a very manic, quick process
Yeah.
because I don't outline, so I'm telling the story as I go.
Oh,
And
wow.
then
Okay.
in the years preceding that, between gaps of time with other work, I've been polishing up the manuscripts and getting them ready and slowly trickling them out.
Nice. Nice. I as somebody who's just only well, I still can't technically say published author for another few weeks, but as
Oh.
somebody who's written his first book, I look at that and think, man, how in the world do you get to write 4 books? Oh, wait, 17, because this counts as at least a dozen. I mean, amazing, amazing stuff. Very impressive, Kelly, truly. Now,
Oh, thank you.
where can people find your work? And if they wanted to follow you on social media to learn a little bit more about what you do?
Well, I suppose the easiest place is my website. I write under my pen name, which is my initials, KM Rice. Again,
Okay.
a nod
Okay.
to the professor,
Of
publishing under
course.
initials.
Initials are always a thing, yeah.
And you can find me on most social media as KM Rice Author,
Okay.
except for Instagram, where I went rogue and I changed my handle to Wild Authoress. So
Ooh, I like that. Well, folks, I do hope that you look Kelly up, and if you're interested in her books, that you pick them up. They're going to be a good read. Kelly, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate
thank
it.
you. It was so much fun.
It really was. Hopefully, we'll get you back again soon. Now, folks, before I wrap up, don't forget that the Patreon for today's Tolkien Times is going to launch tomorrow. That's August 12th. When you support the TTT, you're going to get all sorts of good stuff. Depending on what tier you choose, you can get an ad-free feed for the show, a monthly hangout just for today's Tolkien Times patrons, priority for choosing readings and mailbag questions, and even a patron-exclusive bonus weekly episode and free merch. So go to tolkientimes.com/Patreon right now to learn more and be ready to sign up tomorrow. Now, that's it for today's Fandom Friday, but come back next week to meet another of your fellow Tolkien fans and maybe even learn what niches of the community you might be interested in exploring or writing or doing all sorts of amazing things in. And if you're interested in joining me here on today's Tolkien Times to talk about what it is you do in the fandom on a future Fandom Friday, let me know by emailing Bartleman at theprancingponypodcast.com. Now, if you're not already listening to the Prancing Pony Podcast, please give it a go. More than 300 episodes and 7 million downloads, walking our way through Middle-earth and interviewing even more amazing guests. Join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times as we wrap up Week 11 with Silmarillion Saturday. Like and subscribe on YouTube, follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow at Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And in the words of Faramir, go with the goodwill of all good men.